Hi there, I'm Jen Redfern from Plus Health Company, chartered physiotherapist and Plus Pilates teacher. Today we're going to chat about why pain isn't always where the problem is. You may have heard the expression, the culprit stays quiet whilst the victim shouts out, and that can often be the case. So when we're in our physiotherapy clinic, we take a really detailed history about your particular issue, and then we work from there and have a pretty good idea of why you may be experiencing what you're experiencing. So sometimes we talk about referred pain, and that essentially means that the pain is being felt somewhere else from where the problem is originating, and that can sometimes link to nerves. So this is Ralph, or the back of him at least. And you can see, if you're not already familiar, that the spine generally sits fairly central to the body, all the way from the base of your skull through your torso, all the way to your buttocks. So the nerves exit at every level of the spine, and they're responsible for various factors. They provide us with sensations, so touch, but also unpleasant sensations such as pins and needles and numbness, tingling. But they also are like our power cords, and they enable us to move and function. So they actually give us the ability to move our limbs or our torso. And they are also responsible, unfortunately, for that unpleasant response we call pain. So to give you an example, sometimes people present with a shoulder problem, and that can actually be a consequence of being stiff or restricted around the neck, but also sometimes when the disc element is involved, and that can just gently press or compress around that area and lead to a pain around the shoulder. Sometimes that pain can sit a little bit lower down the arm, and that can be a consequence of having an issue lower down in the neck. So sometimes people will present with things like tennis elbow or golfer's elbow, and actually it's not always because you've played lots of tennis or golf, so it's a little bit misleading as titles anyway, but it can be that you have a neural, so a nerve component to your symptom, and if you work on improving your neck mobility, your strength and your general control, then that can be a real benefit and your symptoms can resolve. Separately, you might want to think a little bit lower down the back. I'm sure most of us have heard of sciatica, and that really unpleasant pain that we can feel along the leg, primarily to one side. And that can be caused by a little bit of pinching at the nerves or compression of the nerve as it exits the lower part of the lumbar spine, the lower back. And that can sometimes cause problems all the way down into the foot. So whilst you might think that you have a foot problem, actually we need to treat the back in order to overcome the foot pain. So nerves can be really tricky and they can be really troublesome, but in most cases we can really help in physical therapy. Now, other factors that can influence pain and being in an area where you don't have the specific cause, the origin of that problem, is referred pain from things like muscle imbalance. So to give you a really brief overview, our muscles work with one another to provide support and movement and stability control in various directions of our body, and they provide us with really important balance overall. Now, if we've had a problem with our hips, so these are your buttocks down here, folks, or they would be if it wasn't just a skeleton, and our buttocks are primarily responsible for coordinating and looking after our pelvic stability and control and the alignment of our legs. So if we've had a problem with our back or our hip or even one of our legs or both of them, or been incapacitated for a time, then we may actually find that we become weakened around the buttock muscles known as the gluteals over a period of time. Now, if you don't overcome that and work to enhance that stability, control and function, then that can sometimes lead to overworking in other muscles. So it may be that you start to use the muscles that sit along the side of the spine a little bit more, or the muscles that sit at the back of the leg known as the hamstrings muscle group. But there is also a relationship between your right buttock cheek and left shoulder. So if you have an underperforming right buttock cheek, then you may over time compensate through your left latissimus dorsi. And then that can contribute to problems around your shoulder. So you may in fact present in your physio clinic with a shoulder problem, and actually what you need to do to overcome it is to actually strengthen your opposite buttock. So it's a hard sell, it's a bit of a tricky one to get your head around, but it's just explaining, hopefully in a little snapshot, how and why you may sometimes experience pain where the problem is not actually originating from. Hope that was helpful, and until next time, thanks for listening. Bye for now.